What if I told you that a quarter worth just 25 cents could spark rumors of a hidden fortune worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out an ordinary-looking coin, and discovering that collectors across America are desperately searching for the exact same piece. Sounds unbelievable, right? But that's exactly the kind of mystery that has surrounded the 2000 Washington quarter for years. Today, we're diving deep into one of America's most talked about modern coins. A coin that has generated headlines, treasure hunting stories, and even claims of values reaching into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. But how much of that is true? And could there really be a hidden treasure sitting unnoticed in your spare change? To answer that question, we have to travel back to the dawn of a new millennium. The year was 2000. The world had just survived the feared Y2K computer crisis. Americans were stepping into the 21st century with excitement, uncertainty, and optimism. At the same time, the United States Mint was in the middle of one of the most successful coin programs in American history, the 50-state quarters program. For the first time ever, Americans weren't just spending quarters, they were collecting them. The Washington quarter itself had already been part of American life for nearly 7 decades. Originally introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of America's first president, George Washington, the coin became one of the most recognizable pieces of currency ever produced. But by the year 2000, the quarter had transformed from simple pocket change into a nationwide treasure hunt. The Denver Mint, identified by the small D Mint mark on the obverse of the coin, struck hundreds of millions of quarters during this period. Among them were the famous state quarters that captivated collectors of all ages. Children searched through piggy banks. Parents checked their change after every shopping trip. Grandparents assembled complete collections in blue folders. And somewhere along the way, stories began to emerge. Stories of rare errors. Stories of extraordinary discoveries. And stories of quarters worth staggering amounts of money. The truth is, the vast majority of 2000 Washington quarters are worth exactly what you would expect: 25 cents. In circulated condition, millions and millions of these coins still exist today. Yet that hasn't stopped collectors from searching relentlessly for the exceptions. Because in coin collecting, it's not always the coin itself that creates value. Sometimes it's the mistake. During the minting process, countless things can go wrong. A die can crack. A planchet can be defective. The strike can be off-center. Sometimes, tiny errors invisible to the average person can transform an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. And that's where the real mystery of the 2000 Washington quarter begins. Collectors have reported examples featuring dramatic die cracks, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and other minting anomalies. Some of these genuine error coins have sold for hundreds, or even thousands of dollars depending on their rarity and condition. But what about the sensational claims of values reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars? The answer reveals something fascinating about human nature itself. In the age of the internet, stories spread quickly. A rare auction result involving an exceptional coin specimen, a unique error, or an extraordinarily preserved example can suddenly transform into a viral headline claiming that every similar coin is worth a fortune. Before long, millions of people are checking their pockets, convinced that they may have discovered hidden wealth. And honestly, who can blame them? The possibility that an everyday object could secretly be worth a life-changing amount of money taps into something universal. The dream of discovery. It's the same dream that sends treasure hunters into shipwrecks, archaeologists into ancient tombs, and coin collectors into dusty jars stored in attics and basements. But here's what makes the 2000 Washington quarter truly fascinating. Even if most examples aren't worth a fortune, they represent something historically significant. These coins circulated during a remarkable period in American history, a moment when the country was entering a new century while simultaneously rediscovering its own history through the state quarters program. More Americans collected coins during this era than at perhaps any other time in modern history. The U.S. Mint reported unprecedented public participation. Families bonded over collecting. Schools used state quarters as educational tools. Millions of people who had never considered themselves collectors suddenly became treasure hunters. And somewhere among the billions of quarters produced, genuine rarities did emerge. A perfectly preserved example graded at the highest levels by professional grading services can command impressive prices. Exceptional mint state specimens, especially those with pristine surfaces and outstanding strike quality, can attract serious collector interest. This pursuit of perfection is one of the most fascinating aspects of coin collecting. Imagine two quarters struck on the same day by the same mint using the same machines. One enters circulation immediately, spending years passing through vending machines, cash registers, and pockets. The other somehow survives untouched, preserved in nearly flawless condition for decades. One remains worth 25 cents. The other becomes a prized collector's item. The difference isn't the metal, it's the story. And perhaps that's the greatest mystery of all. Why do humans assign extraordinary value to tiny pieces of metal? Why do collectors spend years searching for a single elusive coin? Why does the possibility of discovering hidden treasure continue to captivate us generation after generation? Maybe it's because every coin carries more than monetary value. Every coin carries history. The 2000 Washington quarter witnessed the beginning of a new millennium, passed through millions of hands, traveled across cities, states, and entire regions of America. It became part of countless everyday moments. Buying a cup of coffee, paying for parking, or sitting forgotten in a kitchen drawer. And perhaps, somewhere right now, a truly remarkable example is still waiting to be discovered. Maybe it's hidden inside an old coin collection. Maybe it's resting in a forgotten piggy bank. Or maybe, just maybe, it's sitting quietly in someone's pocket at this very moment. So the next time you receive a quarter in your change, take a second look. Because while most 2000 Washington quarters won't make you rich, every great treasure story begins with someone willing to look a little closer than everyone else. And who knows? The next incredible discovery in the world of coin collecting could begin with just 25 cents. If you enjoyed uncovering the mysteries behind the 2000 Washington quarter, make sure to subscribe, because the world of rare coins is filled with hidden histories, forgotten treasures, and astonishing discoveries that are still waiting to be found. The year was 2001. America was entering a new century. The internet was changing everyday life. Cell phones were becoming essential, and millions of Americans were carrying a simple coin in their pockets without realizing that one day, some collectors would begin searching for a very specific version worth astonishing amounts of money. But what if I told you that a seemingly ordinary 2001 Washington quarter could be hiding a story of rarity, mystery, and unexpected value? Could one of these quarters still be sitting in a forgotten jar, a dusty drawer, or even your own pocket change? The Washington quarter is one of the most iconic coins ever produced in American history. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of President George Washington, the coin was never intended to become a permanent design. Yet Americans embraced it so completely that it remained in circulation for decades, becoming a symbol of everyday commerce and national identity. By the time the year 2001 arrived, the United States Mint was in the middle of one of the most successful coin programs ever created, the 50-state quarters program. Millions of Americans suddenly became collectors. Children searched their pocket change. Families purchased coin albums. Treasure hunters began paying attention to quarters in a way they never had before. At the heart of this collecting revolution was the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark on the coin. The 2001 Washington quarter was produced in enormous numbers, with hundreds of millions entering circulation. On the surface, that should have made the coin common and virtually worthless beyond its face value. But history has taught coin collectors one very important lesson. Sometimes, rarity isn't created by low production numbers. Sometimes, rarity is created by mistakes. Imagine receiving a handful of quarters as change after buying a cup of coffee. Most people would spend them without a second thought. But what if one of those quarters contained a minting error so unusual that collectors would pay thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to own it? This possibility transformed ordinary Americans into modern treasure hunters. The 2001 Washington quarter became particularly interesting because of several rare error varieties discovered over the years. Some examples were struck on incorrect planchets. Others exhibited dramatic off-center strikes, double strikes, die cracks, or unusual minting defects that made them extraordinarily desirable. One of the most famous categories of modern coin errors involves coins struck on the wrong metal blanks entirely. Imagine holding a quarter that somehow ended up being struck on a foreign coin blank or on metal intended for another denomination. These accidental creations represent tiny moments of chaos within one of the world's most sophisticated manufacturing systems. And collectors love chaos, because every error coin tells a story. Somewhere inside a mint facility, a fraction of a second passed differently than expected. A machine malfunctioned. A planchet entered the wrong chamber. A die shifted slightly, and in that tiny moment, an ordinary coin became something extraordinary. But there's another reason why the 2001 Washington quarter fascinates collectors. Condition. Most people think old coins are valuable because they're old. In reality, some modern coins in perfect condition can command far greater prices than coins that are centuries old. This is where the world of professional coin grading enters the story. A quarter that spent years rattling around in pockets and cash registers may only be worth 25 cents. But a perfectly preserved specimen, graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, can become incredibly valuable. In the competitive world of modern coin collecting, the difference between a grade of MS-67 and MS-68 can mean the difference between hundreds of dollars and tens of thousands of dollars. Think about that for a moment. A coin produced by the hundreds of millions can become rare simply because very few examples survived in absolutely pristine condition. This phenomenon has turned modern coin collecting into something resembling an archaeological expedition. Collectors search through bankrolls, estate sales, inherited collections, and forgotten storage boxes, hoping to discover a hidden gem that everyone else overlooked. And sometimes they do. There are documented cases of ordinary individuals discovering valuable modern coins in pocket change, inherited collections, or unopened bankrolls stored away for decades. These discoveries fuel a powerful dream, the belief that treasure might still be hiding in plain sight. The cultural significance of the Washington quarter extends far beyond its monetary value. For generations of Americans, these coins have witnessed history firsthand. They passed through the hands of soldiers, teachers, factory workers, students, and families. They bought meals, paid parking meters, and traveled across the country millions of times. The 2001 quarter, specifically, emerged during a pivotal moment in American history. It was minted during the dawn of a new millennium, a period filled with optimism, technological transformation, and profound historical change. Every surviving example serves as a small metallic time capsule from that era. Yet perhaps the greatest mystery surrounding coins like the 2001 Washington quarter is this: how many valuable examples remain undiscovered? How many rare errors slipped through quality control unnoticed? How many perfect specimens are still sitting inside forgotten collections, waiting for someone to recognize their importance? The answer is simple: nobody knows. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes coin collecting so addictive. Every coin collector, from beginners to experts, shares the same secret hope. The next coin they examine could be the one, the discovery that changes everything, the hidden treasure that survived decades unnoticed. The beauty of the 2001 Washington quarter lies not only in its potential value but in what it represents: possibility. A possibility that history can hide in ordinary places. A possibility that treasures still exist. A possibility that the next handful of change you receive could contain a remarkable story waiting to be discovered. So the next time you receive a Washington quarter, don't spend it too quickly. Turn it over. Examine the mint mark. Look closely at the details, because somewhere out there, a rare 2001 Washington quarter may still be waiting for its moment to be found. And who knows? The next great coin discovery in American history might already be sitting in your pocket. I'd like to start with a question that might change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your pocket right now. What if a simple quarter, a coin worth just 25 cents, could actually be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? What if one of the most ordinary coins in America was hiding an extraordinary secret? Today, We're diving deep into the fascinating story of the 2014 Washington quarter, a modern coin that has sparked treasure hunts, fueled collector dreams, and created a mystery that continues to captivate numismatists across the nation. At first glance, the 2014 Washington quarter doesn't seem particularly special. It's a coin millions of Americans have used without a second thought. It jingles in pockets, disappears into vending machines, and gets tossed into jars on kitchen counters. Yet, beneath its familiar appearance lies a story of history, artistry, rarity, and the tantalizing possibility that one remarkable example could be worth an astonishing amount of money. To understand why this coin has become so intriguing, we need to travel back through the history of the American quarter itself. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of America's first president, George Washington. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the coin quickly became one of the most recognizable pieces of American currency. For decades, its design remained largely unchanged, serving as a miniature monument carried daily by millions of Americans. But in 2010, the United States Mint launched a new chapter in quarter-dollar history, the America the Beautiful Quarters program. This ambitious series celebrated national parks and historic sites from every U.S. state and territory. Each year, new reverse designs transformed the ordinary quarter into a traveling museum of American heritage. Then came 2014. That year, the Philadelphia Mint, identified by the small P mint mark, produced several quarters honoring some of America's most treasured landmarks. Millions were struck, and on paper there was nothing extraordinary about them. They were mass-produced modern coins, designed for circulation and everyday commerce. Or so everyone thought. As collectors began examining their 2014 quarters more closely, whispers started spreading throughout the numismatic community. Some examples exhibited unusual characteristics. Others displayed striking minting anomalies, and a few exceptionally preserved specimens achieved grades so high that they became extraordinarily rare despite their enormous production numbers. This is one of the great paradoxes of modern coin collecting. How can a coin produced in the hundreds of millions become rare? The answer lies not in how many were made, but in how few survived in absolutely pristine condition. Imagine a freshly minted quarter leaving the presses of the Philadelphia Mint in 2014. It shines brilliantly under factory lights, untouched and perfect. Moments later, it's dumped into massive containers, transported across the country, distributed to banks, and eventually enters circulation. Every step introduces scratches, marks, and wear. The vast majority of coins lose their perfection almost instantly. But every once in a while, a coin escapes that fate. A handful of specimens remain virtually flawless, preserving the exact appearance they had at the moment of their creation. These coins receive extraordinarily high grades from professional grading services, and suddenly, a common quarter becomes an object of intense desire. And that's where our story takes an even more fascinating turn. In recent years, reports have circulated within collecting communities about exceptionally rare and high-grade 2014 Washington quarters commanding astonishing prices. Some claims have suggested valuations reaching into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, with figures approaching or even exceeding $900,000 being discussed online. But here's where the mystery deepens. Has a standard 2014 Washington quarter truly sold for $914,000? The documented reality is more complicated. In the world of coin collecting, sensational stories often spread rapidly. Headlines proclaim ordinary coins worth fortunes. Social media videos attract millions of views. Treasure hunters rush to examine every coin they own. Yet verified auction records tell a more cautious story. What actually drives extraordinary values in modern quarters isn't simply the date or mint mark. Instead, it's the presence of an exceptionally rare combination of factors. Perfect preservation, unique minting errors, extraordinary provenance, or population rarity at the highest certified grades. Consider this for a moment. A coin worth 25 cents can become worth thousands of dollars because of microscopic details invisible to the average person. Tiny differences in strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and even the absence of minuscule scratches can transform pocket change into a prized collectible. This phenomenon has created a modern treasure hunt unlike anything previous generations experienced. Across America, collectors now search through bankrolls, coin jars, estate sales, and inherited collections hoping to discover that one extraordinary specimen. Families gather around kitchen tables inspecting quarters under magnifying glasses. Amateur treasure hunters spend evenings studying mint marks and grading standards. The dream persists because, occasionally, remarkable discoveries really do happen. And perhaps that's what makes the story of the 2014 Washington quarter so compelling. It's not merely about money. It's about possibility. It's about the idea that extraordinary value can hide within ordinary objects. It's about the excitement of discovery and the enduring human fascination with treasure hunting. Every coin carries a journey, passing through countless hands and countless stories before arriving at its final destination. Think about your own pocket change for a moment. Where has that quarter traveled? Which cities has it visited? How many people have held it? Could one of those ordinary-looking coins contain an extraordinary story waiting to be uncovered? The Philadelphia Mint itself has a history stretching back to 1792, making it one of America's oldest and most storied institutions. Every coin produced there becomes part of a historical continuum spanning centuries. The 2014 Washington quarter represents not only a piece of currency, but also a snapshot of American culture, craftsmanship, and history during the early 21st century. Collectors today continue to study these coins with remarkable dedication. They analyze strike characteristics, compare die varieties, search for errors, and document population reports. Their efforts transform everyday objects into historical artifacts and potential treasures. And perhaps that's the greatest mystery of all. Why do we remain so fascinated by coins? Maybe it's because coins connect us directly to the past. They survive wars, economic crises, political changes, and generations of human lives. They pass silently from hand to hand, carrying stories we can only imagine. The 2014 Washington quarter reminds us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes the most extraordinary discoveries hide in the most ordinary places. Sometimes treasure doesn't lie buried beneath the earth but rattles quietly in our pockets every single day. So tonight, before you dismiss that handful of spare change sitting on your dresser, take another look. Examine each quarter carefully. Study the details, because while the odds may be incredibly small, the possibility remains. And that's exactly what keeps treasure hunters searching, collectors collecting, and dreamers dreaming. After all, what if the next quarter you pick up isn't worth 25 cents? What if it's worth a fortune? Before we begin, here's something that might surprise you. Right now, somewhere in America, a 2016 Washington quarter could be sitting unnoticed in a coin jar, buried under old receipts in a kitchen drawer, or hiding in the cup holder of a forgotten car. To most people, it's just 25 cents. But to collectors and treasure hunters, certain examples of this seemingly ordinary coin have sparked a frenzy of excitement, with rumors, rare errors, and exceptional specimens pushing values into astonishing territory. The question is, could one of these quarters be worth far more than its face value? The story of the 2016 Washington quarter begins with one of America's longest-running coin series. The Washington quarter itself first entered circulation in 1932, created to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of America's first president, George Washington. What was originally intended as a one-year commemorative issue became one of the most recognizable and beloved coins in American history. Fast forward to 2016, and the United States Mint was in the middle of another ambitious chapter, the America the Beautiful Quarters program. This historic series, launched in 2010, celebrated national parks and historic sites from every state, territory, and the District of Columbia. The Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark, produced hundreds of millions of quarters that year, each representing important locations across the nation. At first glance, a 2016 D quarter doesn't appear extraordinary. It's made of a copper core sandwiched between layers of copper nickel, measures just under an inch in diameter, and weighs 5.67 grams. Millions of Americans handled these coins without giving them a second thought. But as every treasure hunter knows, extraordinary discoveries often hide in the most ordinary places. In 2016, 5 different America the Beautiful quarter designs were released. They honored Shawnee National Forest in Illinois, Cumberland Gap National Historical Park in Kentucky, Harper's Ferry National Historical Park in West Virginia, Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota, and Fort Moultrie at Fort Sumter National Monument in South Carolina. And this is where the mystery begins. Because while the vast majority of 2016 D quarters are worth only face value, a tiny number of exceptional examples have captured the attention of collectors across the country. Some feature striking errors. Others survived in pristine condition, untouched by circulation, preserved almost perfectly from the day they left the mint. Imagine opening a roll of quarters from the bank and discovering a coin with a dramatic die crack stretching across its surface. Or perhaps a doubled design element visible under magnification. To most people, these imperfections might look like damage. But to experienced collectors, they can transform an ordinary quarter into a highly sought-after treasure. One of the fascinating realities of coin collecting is that mistakes often create value. A misaligned strike, an off-center design, a doubled inscription, or a retained cut error can turn pocket change into a prized collectible. The United States Mint produces billions of coins, but perfection on such a massive scale is nearly impossible. Every now and then, an error escapes quality control and enters circulation, creating a modern treasure hunt that continues to this day. But there's another category of valuable 2016 D quarters that generates even greater excitement. Superb gem examples. These are coins that somehow avoided the scratches, dings, and wear that affect nearly every circulating coin. Graded by professional services and receiving extraordinarily high scores, these coins can command prices that seem almost unbelievable. Think about that for a moment. 2 quarters minted in the same facility on the same day by the same machines can have dramatically different futures. One may spend years rattling around in pockets and cash registers, eventually becoming worn and forgotten. The other might remain flawless, preserved by chance, eventually earning a place in a prestigious collection and selling for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. This raises an irresistible question. How many valuable coins have already passed through our hands without us ever realizing it? The fascination with modern coin hunting isn't really about money alone. It's about possibility. It's about the idea that history, rarity, and hidden value can exist right in front of us, disguised as something ordinary. Consider the journey of a single 2016 D quarter. It begins as a blank metal planchet, enters enormous presses at the Denver Mint, receives its design in a fraction of a second, and then embarks on a journey through banks, stores, vending machines, and countless pockets across America. Along the way, that coin becomes part of millions of individual stories. Perhaps it paid for a child's first candy bar. Maybe it was dropped into a charity collection box. Could have traveled across dozens of states before finally landing in a collector's hands. Every coin carries not just monetary value, but a hidden history of human experience. Collectors today continue searching through rolls of quarters, hoping to discover one of those elusive treasures. They inspect mint marks, examine surfaces under magnification, and study tiny details invisible to the naked eye. For them, the excitement isn't just about finding a valuable coin. It's about participating in a treasure hunt that never truly ends. And that's what makes the 2016 D Washington quarter so fascinating. It represents the perfect intersection of history, craftsmanship, rarity, and human curiosity. It reminds us that value isn't always obvious, and that extraordinary discoveries often hide in the most unexpected places. So the next time you receive change at a store, pause for just a moment before tossing those quarters into a jar. Take a closer look. Examine the date. Look for the Denver Mint mark. Search for unusual features, striking errors, or exceptional condition. Because somewhere out there, a seemingly ordinary 2016 D Washington quarter may still be waiting to be discovered. And who knows? The next great coin treasure story might begin with the simple act of checking your pocket change. If you enjoyed this journey into the hidden world of rare coins and modern treasure hunting, make sure to subscribe and join us for more incredible stories about the valuable treasures that may be hiding in plain sight. After all, history isn't always locked away in museums. Sometimes, it's sitting quietly in your pocket, waiting for someone curious enough to notice it.